Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another TMDSAS office hour. My name is Sulema, and I am the communication specialist with TMDSAS. So for today's week, we will just go over any questions that you guys may have. I have a few announcements that I'd like to share with you all. And so I'll go ahead and get started with those. But in the meantime, feel free to enter any questions that you may have in the chat, and I can answer those after the announcements. So as you all may know, we do have the UT School of Podiatric Medicine that had recently joined TMDSAS. They are still accepting applications for EY 2022. Sorry, too many twos. And so I do have a link here. They have extended their deadline to this Wednesday, July 27th. So if you're interested in applying for this application cycle, well, actually to start in this fall, they are still accepting applications, and I will go ahead and link the information below. And we also have a UT Tyler School of Medicine that has also joined us, joined TMDSAS. It's a very popular school. We've had a lot of requests to add the school to applications. I will go ahead and also link to, let's see, do have information about UT Tyler as well. So let me go ahead and enter that into the link as well. Okay, and that article contains information on how to apply to UT Tyler, and it also provides you a link to the workshop that they had with that we had recently with the admissions team from UT Tyler, and more information about the school, their curriculum, and anything else that you would like to know. They do have a FAQ at the end, so that it would be a useful resource to take a look at if you're interested in applying to UT Tyler for EY 2023. And additionally, I did want to share that recently we've been receiving a lot of questions about application processing. So it looks like right now our team is at the 4-week mark. As you know, it can take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to process an application. And again, our team does not need your letters, they do not need your test scores, and they also don't need your transcripts to process your application. They just need your submitted application. In an office hour in the past, we did go over what actually goes into processing when it comes to your application. Our team will take a look at your coursework, make sure you've entered everything correctly. They'll also take a look at your residency information and your GPA. So during the 2 to 4 week period, the application is still with TMDSAS, so it hasn't reached the school just yet. That will only happen once it has been transmitted. So we do have the office hour that we had, I believe, 2 weeks ago. It talks a little bit more about this process. As we're getting those questions recently about how long is it going to take to process an application, if there's anything that's going on that you may need to know about your application, or if there's something wrong, I highly recommend that you check out that office hour, and I'll go ahead and link it in the chat as well. All right, so the link is in the chat. And again, I just wanted to re-emphasize that during this 2 to 4 week processing stage, so this occurs after you submit your application, It can take anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks for TMDSAS to process your application. During that time, it is still with TMDSAS. And it just depends on how many applications are received per day. So our team reviews applications as they are submitted. So some days we may have more applications than others, and that's why it may take a little bit longer for our team to process those applications. Um, Sometimes there may be instances where there is a case where they're reviewing your residency and you are also submitting documents, so that might take a little bit longer. But just know that overall, 2 to 4, even up to 4 weeks, is totally normal at this point in the cycle. We are still in the peak of the season. We're still receiving a lot of applications. And so those questions are starting to come in. But this is also a great opportunity to leverage on your end. So 2 to 4 weeks, again, the application's still with TMDSAS. This is actually a great time to get your letters of evaluation and your test score submitted during this time. And so you don't need those whenever you submit your application, but using the 2 to 4 weeks timing that it's still going to be, that your application will still be with TMDCS, it would be a wise choice to go ahead and use that time to your advantage and get your letters and test scores in. And all this is covered in that most recent office hour that we talked about, and that it's linked in the chat. So if you have any further questions, you can always take a look at that. All right, and that it looks like that is all that I have on my end when it comes to announcements. So this office hour is for you guys. Let me know if there's any questions that I can answer during this time. And also feel free to send us a message in your TMDSCS application portal. And that is the best way to communicate with TMDSCS. It's the best way to reach anyone from our supporting documents team. This is a team that reviews letters of evaluation. If there's any questions that you may have about a letter that was rejected or specific letter requirements or anything of that nature, the messaging system is the best way to get in contact with them. Same with our processing team. We do have our applicant liaisons. They only work in the application portal. So that is the best way to get in touch with them. Get in touch with your liaison if you have questions about your residency, your coursework, your GPA, anything regarding your application. You can always send a message in the TMDCS portal to contact your applicant liaison. And I do see we have a question here. Do you have information about testing accommodations? Is this about the MCAT or DAT? In that case, I would recommend that you visit the DAT and MCAT or AMC page. They're the ones who administer the exams. So, any specific questions that you may have about your test dates or just your exam in general, those would be great point of references. We would only accept your DAT. We will only receive your score, and then once we receive your score, it gets uploaded on your application for your schools to see. So for more information, I recommend that you visit the ADA page. Okay, we have a question here about letters of recommendation. One of my letter got rejected due to a lack of contact information. However, the contact information is in my activity section. So the thing is, when it comes to letters of evaluation, the letter requirements that are listed out on our website and on the application guide are letter requirements that have been established by our Team DSAS member institutions. So these are not necessarily rules that we came up with. These are the guidelines and requirements that our schools have established, and we just need to abide by those requirements. So this admissions committees, when they are reviewing your letters of evaluation, they are only looking at the actual letter itself. So the document, not maybe not your application, but they want to see this information on that letter itself. They want to see an official or personal letterhead on the document, your name, a date. They want it dated, and your evaluator's information regarding contact information, such as an email or phone number, have to be on the letter itself. This is in case they want to contact your evaluator directly to ask or follow up with anything that they might have mentioned in your letter. They want to get a hold of them. So contact information such as an email or phone number have to be on the letter. I know that for some of our evaluators, they have mentioned, well, I created my evaluator account in your evaluator portal, and my phone number and email address are listed on there. Why is that? Why did my letter get rejected? Again, the admissions committees on the school's end will only review the document, the actual letter itself. So if they want to get a hold of your evaluator, they will have to have their contact information on the letter itself. Even if you have this in your application, even if they already have an account with us and they're using the evaluator portal, they want to see that information on the letter itself. So that is more than that is the story as to why we need you to have your evaluator needs to have the contact information on the letter itself. But if you did have any follow-up questions about that, you can always reply back to that message that was sent to you. But thank you, Julia. That is a good question. And Julia, no problem. No problem. I know that sometimes it can be frustrating when you get a letter rejected, especially earlier in this cycle. We did have a little processing times were a little bit longer, so I understand where that frustration can come from. But unfortunately, we just need to Team DSCS just needs to follow these letter requirements, and that is just so it's for you guys' benefit to ensure that the schools will accept your letter. And again, those are the letter requirements established by the schools. Okay, I see you have a follow-up. Your professor isn't replying. So let me answer this in two parts. So sometimes if your evaluator is being unresponsive, let's say for example, this is your fourth evaluator, if you needed to remove the evaluator, and just that way you only have the three evaluations that are required. You can request to get that fourth evaluator removed if they're being unresponsive. All you will have to do is send a message in your Team DCS application portal and let us know which evaluator needs to be removed. So that's an option if your professor or your evaluator is not responding to you or getting back to you. Regarding your chronology of activity section, unfortunately, once you submit an application, the section cannot be changed. So it's honestly not that big of a deal because it serves as a summary page of everything you've entered in your application. Ultimately, what the schools are really looking at, since this is basically mostly composed of activities, your schools will be looking at the activity sections individually. So they'll be able to see the full descriptions and all the activities that you have listed on there. So it's okay if there are some things that you might have missed whenever before you submitted your application when it comes to the chronology of activity section. So that's fine. And I will say that if you had anything that has changed significantly, in addition to the chronology of activity section, essays and activities in the activity section cannot be changed once you submit. But if you do have any changes that are significant that you need to contact the schools for, I recommend that you keep a log of those changes with you and just take it with you to these interviews that you have with the schools. Mention those changes, and perhaps there might be opportunities for you to enter this information in the secondary application portals. Those are managed by the schools. You may be able to enter that information, but just know that even if you can't update it with Team DCS, there might be additional opportunities to mention those changes in your interviews as well. Okay, so would I recommend submitting an application this week before submitting exam scores? So this sounds a little bit more of the advising side. So I can't really advise you on when the best time is to submit your application. Only you would know if you feel great about your application, what you've entered, and if you're ready to submit. Honestly, it's going to be up to you, but just know that we don't need your test scores to be on your application in order for you to submit your primary application. You can go ahead and submit it if you feel comfortable, and that is the most accurate representation of what you want to show to the schools. You can go ahead and submit it if you would like, if you feel comfortable with that. Again, just earlier I mentioned that it takes anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks to process a primary application. During that time, your application is still with TMDSAS. So it would be wise to use those 2 to 4 weeks to make sure that your scores come in, that those are released, and whatnot. So that might be a good opportunity for you to take advantage of getting those in your application. So that way, whenever it gets transmitted to the schools, your scores are already attached to the primary application. Okay, so the application guide says that the DAT can last up to 5 years, and the expiration years changed because it used to be 3 years old. I'm not quite sure when it changed, if it did. For as long as I can remember, and I've been here for 2 cycles already at this point, it's been 5 years. That has been the requirement for specific dates on which DAT scores will be accepted. We do have those in the test score section of the application guide if you want to take a look at that. But I know that it changes every year, it moves up a year. So, for example, if it's 5 years, I believe right now, the earliest that you can have, I think the cutoff year would be 2018 for the cycle. Just know that for the next cycle, it would move up a year later, so 2019. Um, but I don't have this information at the top of my head for specific years and dates. So take a look at the test score section of the application guide because that one does provide the specific date and year for you. All right. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and enter this into the chat. This is basically y'all's time to ask any questions that y'all may have. If you are unable to send a message right away, and if you want your question to be answered live, feel free to enter those questions in the chat. And I'll be here as long as I keep receiving questions from you all. Okay, and it looks like we have a transcript question. Transcripts should not be ordered unless upon requested by the dental school. So for transcripts, don't worry about those just yet. They're not needed to process your primary application. Team DCS will actually be the ones to reach out to you to collect your transcripts. So for medical and dental applicants, once you have been accepted, that is a time whenever the schools will let us know that you have been accepted. At that point, Team DCS will reach out to you to collect your transcripts. This is typically in the fall because medical acceptances start going out around, I believe it's October 15th. That's the date that medical acceptances start going out. For dental applicants, it's December. It's mid-December. I want to say December 15th, but just to make sure, I'm just going to say mid-December is when dental acceptances go out. So that is later in the fall when you can expect to hear back on Team DSCS sending you a request to send in the transcripts. So don't worry about those just yet. Those are not needed at this time, only whenever we request it. So typically at the end of the fall. And I know that that sometimes can be tricky, especially if you are applying through multiple application services. I believe Team DCS is the only one that has the transcript a little bit differently. We don't require transcripts to be submitted at the time that you submit your primary application. The reason for that is because, well, one, whenever you are completing your application, you do sign an agreement that everything you've entered in your application is accurate and correct. So, whenever you use your transcript, your official transcript, to enter your courses into your application, you would be entering everything that is on the transcript already. So, that'll help the schools and us see what you've entered as true and correct. So, therefore, we don't need your transcripts just yet. And we only need those from applicants who have been accepted. For veterinary applicants, it's a little bit different. Transcripts will be requested once an applicant has been interviewed. So I know it can be confusing. Again, I know that we are aware that you may be applying through multiple application services, but TMDSAS is a little different. But the good thing is you don't have to worry about transcripts when you are submitting, and therefore you can save some money there by not sending those in. All right. I have a question about submitting state residency documents for TMDSAS. Is there a way I can contact someone directly because the phone no, direct me to the live stream. Okay. So during this time on Mondays, we do have our phones off, just so that way we can take advantage of the office hours here and try to answer questions quicker. With residency documents, it's a little tricky with that situation just because when you contact TMDSA support via our phone lines or during office hours, we wouldn't be able to give you specific information about your residency situation. At Team DCS, we don't have residency specialists who are answering the phones. We would only be able to address simple questions about the application. So if you had anything specifically that you wanted to ask about a residency document, maybe you have a question that's specific to the document that was requested from you, it is recommended that you go ahead and reply back to the message that was sent to you. This is from your applicant liaison. They are reviewing your residency situation and they know what that looks like and they know why they asked for that document. They also have been doing this for quite some time, so they know what kind of documents to look for, if there's any alternatives or anything that they can do to work with you with what you have. And so, therefore, we do ask that you reply back to their message so that way they can address your question and you would be getting in contact with someone who is knowledgeable about the area. So, unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to answer your question, but you can definitely refer that to your applicant liaison. And the applicant liaisons only work in the application portal, so that would be the best way to get in contact with them. Unfortunately, we don't have any direct lines to any of our liaisons. And no problem for clarifying. All right, and so I'll just stick around for another uh, 2 to 3 minutes. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and send those in the chat. Otherwise, we can end the session early. And again, if you do have any questions at any time, our phones are only open Monday through Friday. We do not work on the weekends. We only have the phones open from 9 to 12, uh, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., and 1 to 4 p.m. in the afternoons, except for Mondays when we have our office hours. This is the best way to get in contact us with between 1 and 2. But again, if you have any questions outside of those hours, you're more than welcome, of course, to always send us a message that it would be the best way to get in contact with us with Team DSA support, the applicant liaisons, or team members from the supporting documents team. So, All right, let's see. And our office hours are always hosted weekly. Right now, it is on Mondays until we say otherwise. They will be on Mondays at 1 p.m. And typically, we do have some topics that we go over and we discuss based on the different trends that we see throughout the cycle. Last week, we saw a lot of questions about the PCR. So we had an office hour specifically about the PCR. We've had questions about test scores. We had an office hour about that as well. And we covered letters of evaluation in the month of June. It was a big topic since that is when our team is the busiest. It's the busiest time of the year for our supporting documents team in the month of June specifically. So we did receive a lot of questions about letters. So we did host office hours during that time, but you can find other office hours sessions and other workshops, such as the first generation seminar that we had a couple of weeks back. All those videos can be found on our YouTube channel, Texas Health Education Service, if you want to check that out. All right, I have received sport awards in high school. I want to input them in non-academic recognition. Vet student. However, I don't remember the exact date, but I remember the month. Should I estimate it? Yeah, that's fine to estimate it. It was a while back, so it's understandable if you don't remember the exact date. Typically, the month in the year is as closest to the month in the year that you can get to is the best point of advice that I can give you. And it is important to note that as a vet applicant, you can enter activities that you participated in during high school. Medical, dental, and podiatric applicants will need to enter activities after high school graduation. So thank you for putting in parentheses that you are a vet applicant. That would have been my follow-up question. So just to reiterate, it's okay if you estimate your numbers. Again, typically just as close as you can get to the month and the year, it should be perfectly fine. All right, and so I don't see any other questions in the chat. Again, if you do have them, send them our way to via your TMDSAS application portal using the messaging system. Our typical turnaround times is typically between 1 to 2 business days. Um, Sometimes it can be longer just depending on how busy our team is with all the inquiries, but I am happy to say that we are doing well with answering those messages within the 2 business window turnaround. So we do get to those questions, and that is all that I have for you guys today. So if I'll see you guys next time. And again, if you have any questions, just send them via the instant messaging system. But I hope you guys have a wonderful day, a great rest of y'all's week. Best of luck during the application cycle, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye, y'all.